All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining We the People by the People for all the people. We are a group of Floridians who are, our mission here is to share our personal stories with our local legislators so that we can help educate and connect them to the issues, challenges, and opportunities with people with developmental disabilities here in Florida. And our hope is that we will affect positive legislation by doing so. I always want to start our meeting by saying, my goodness, thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon. I heard Sue's on spring break, so I know what it's like to only have a few minutes of life. So for you be able to spend that with us on Friday, we're very, very grateful. And we are kind of in the beginning of our legislative session here in Florida. We started on March 4th. It's March 21st, and we're off to the races this year. It's been an incredibly hopeful year. We've said it each week as we talk. I've never been in the position where our legislators are now incredibly invested in addressing some of the gaps in services we have here in Florida. I think the last count I had, there were 40 bills that were addressing families and individuals with developmental disabilities. And there is a lot of movement within our session. Last week was that last week, everybody? Yeah. About 10 days ago, we all met up in Tallahassee and had an incredible experience for Developmental Disability Awareness Day in the Capitol. Just yesterday was Autism Day in the Capitol. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend. I heard from families that went and that it was another wonderful day of empowerment. Nicole did a whole lot of work behind the scenes, kind of talking, calculating how many bills were heard this week, how many bills are left to be heard, what bills were heard. And she made this cute, is really awesome, simple graphic that I'm going to throw, once I can find it, into the chat for everyone. So you can kind of look over what's being discussed right now in Tallahassee as we continue in our meeting. We do have this meeting every single Friday throughout session, so until May 2nd, from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock to discuss how we can further impact our legislators. And let's see, that's 3 to 4. And then from 4 to 5, Family Cafe is one of the largest cross disability conferences that happens here in Florida in June. I think it's June 13th this year. We all meet in Orlando, and last year there was close to 17,000 families that came out to the conference. And during legislative session, they have policy experts who are able to really dissect what's happening at a high level and come to us as families so we can be a part of the conversation as well. These meetings are recorded. We have a YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/ for all the people Florida. We have a lot of families in our group, about 1,200 in our Facebook group, and a couple hundred who are not Facebook users. So we've grown quite a bit. Our organization is really a grassroots effort. We are not affiliated with any organization. We are just individual self-advocates, family members, providers, community supporters who are all here to really elevate the conversation so that people with developmental disabilities can have the same access as anyone else in our state. And any other additional announcements, Nicole? Did I miss? Oh, wait, I did forget that thing. Happy Down Syndrome Awareness Day. Today is it international,
It's
national?
It's actually World Down Syndrome Day. So it's
World.
because it's 321. So, for the 21, and that's what it is for World Down Syndrome Day.
Yeah, so this is a day to celebrate and to create awareness specifically for individuals with Down syndrome. And my goodness, there it feels like there is a lot of awareness, education, and even more acceptance happening in this state, which is not something I'm used to here. But happy to get used to it. Um, I wanted to see Alan was driving. So, Alan, are you able to chat with families a little bit about what's going on in Tallahassee this week?
Yeah, my wife is driving right now, so I'm not going to crash. So don't worry. So
Thanks,
what
Alan.
happened this past week, or what's going to happen next week?
Ooh.
I'll let's go with this week, and then we'll move into next week. How about that?
Well, this week, the first budget item, the House had a special committee on uh, IT policy and budget subcommittee. It's a new committee because of some of the problems with IT systems. And their budget came out. It was interesting because they came out with non-recurring money for iConnect, which means that I think it implies they're going to do something. But they put, I think, 900,000 for the subscription that you have to pay to keep it existing. So I think there's going to be some activity there. There were, again, for the nth time, there were in the Health and Human Services in the House, and they had hearings on the wait list and money they didn't spend. And, that went on for a couple hours. There was a bill passed in the House and the Senate that providers, direct support professionals could give an EpiPen, where individuals would have to go to a nursing home if they didn't have family and they needed an EpiPen if they didn't have nurses for them. So that's the main stuff. I think next week's the big week. The budget's probably going to come out on Thursday, where we'll get a good feel about how much money they put in our silo. But I'm feeling pretty good about as much emphasis. There's never been this much emphasis this early in session on persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
I think so too. And I thought it was really cool to see that EpiPen bill come forward because I remember we had a dad, Anthony, right? His name's Anthony.
Yep, he was the one
Anthony.
that testified.
Yep, he came on. And what has been going on is if you have any need to have an EpiPen, diabetes, allergies, that you actually had to have a nurse contracted to administer that, which is really difficult with our provider shortage. And this dad, I mean, he has really helped, get the legislators to understand, why this is such an issue, not just for his own child, but for providers, for, residential. I think he's done such an awesome job, and I think that was completely unopposed, right? Everybody was like, "Oh yeah."
Everyone supported it. So it's got one more committee in the House and two more in the Senate. I also want to point out the APD bill, which got tabled, and they made a committee substitute for it that really does a lot of good things on transparency. Um, you were involved in that one. Why don't you explain that, Stephanie? You were all into that one.
Yeah, so House Bill 1103 is what I guess you call the agency bill. The agency bill came out, and a couple weeks ago we talked about how the bill had asked for the Agency of Persons with Disabilities to serve all disabilities now, and they wanted to take over vocational rehabilitation and blind services. And our legislators, with the help of all of us, thought that there should be some other priorities the agency has. In the what it's called is a post-committee substitute. So when a bill comes out and they meet in front of the committees can get together and actually take some stuff out, add some stuff in, and that's what happened is the Human Services Subcommittee in the House came up with 4 different sections of the bill. It was 87 pages, and now I think it's somewhere in 24 pages, where they would like to see so the numbers from the wait list posted on the agency's website like they had before. I think the last one we saw was early 2023. And for our family care councils. And if you've been on this call for the last 2 years, this is something I'm wildly passionate about because everything that I have learned about the Agency of Persons with Disabilities came from my local family care council. And our family care councils have been established in legislation since 1993. There are 15 care councils around the state, and these are all in your local area of Florida where families are actually advising and collaborating with the Agency of Persons with Disabilities on ways that we can help make improvements for our loved ones. I think there is no greater expert in the realm of developmental disabilities than someone with a developmental disability and their families. So having that collaborative piece from the advocates from 30 years ago, kind of educating families and wrapping around families and the agency, and also getting to know community supports. Like, this is a win council that if you aren't aware of your local family care council, go to fccflorida.org and you can find whoever's near you. The majority of our councils have an online meeting, and they all have their set monthly meeting times or sometimes bi-monthly meeting times. And it's an incredible way for us to work together with each other and the agency. But we've struggled with appointments, and there has been kind of a lack of cohesion when it comes to involving the governor. So the legislators created a statewide council, where statewide council members will also be appointed by the governor. In the original bill, the local councils, they wanted to be appointed by the director or secretary of the agency. And this makes it still have the weight that it does, and created um, every 6 months, the local councils can hear from families and engage with the community on, um, topics and issues happening with the IDD community so that we can greater support families. That's my favorite part of the bill because I really feel that Family Care Council is a simple fix. And then the third part, I'm lost in my own babble because I'm thinking about the fourth part. There is some transparency items.
Crisis online.
Oh yeah, and we got the crisis option online. The crisis option online in the bill, where right now, if you go on the APD website, you can fill out an application. But if you find yourself in crisis, you have to fill out a paper application and mail it in, or bring it to your local APD office, and then it takes a little bit longer for it to turn around. They use extra personnel to be able to process all that. So it just makes sense to keep going with that streamlining and utilizing our technology we have today to put the crisis application online as well. So that's in the bill. And then the fourth piece is to relaunch the Medicaid managed care pilot in Miami-Dade, Hillsborough, Manatee, Polk, Hardy County. It's the same pilot that they ran in 2023. and then to streamline it statewide in 2026. So
They also added CDC Plus to the filing.
yes, and there's a part saying that they want to implement, well, it just says to establish a CDC plus component to managed care.
So they didn't flesh that out at all?
Oh, well, no.
With the CDC plus managed care?
So the CDC part of it is actually, if you guys want to look it up, it's the same CDC that they have currently on the LTC waiver. It's under Florida statute 409 point something. I don't know. But that is in there, and it is because the long-term care waiver currently does have a CDC type option. It is not the same as the one on the waiver. So I think it would probably be a good idea for, there to be kind of a comparison to what the current one is under, the waiver and the one under 409, and then maybe, you can help shape that and make it better. And, because the managed care component is definitely there. APD has not been able to do what they needed to do. The week prior, they told the committee that they were reverting $350 million, which is only the general revenue portion. That's not the other 60%. So the year before it was, 800 million. So if you're reverting that kind of money and you have people on a wait list, obviously there's a problem. So then this week they said that they were using 96% of the money. Imagine that. How did that happen? It's amazing. It's just a miracle. And they suddenly have, there's plenty of capacity. They're not saying anything about how bad the capacity is to be able to take the people off of the wait list. And it's not just a matter of having a support coordinator. It's also a matter of being able to have a provider network to help people get into. So there's a couple of things that are going on. This is not all just about like clearing the wait list. We want to have quality provider development as well. And I know that with managed care, it's been very scary because there's such a lack of accountability. But I was thinking about this on my drive home last night from Tallahassee and just the conversations this week. And I think that, APD in that bill, they need to identify where the clients are located in which counties so that we can actually have a targeted approach to where we want to hire people, not just support coordinators and CDC consultants, but also other, providers as well. And I think that we can kind of come at it and this is something that managed care won't like, but I think that you guys as family members, the accountability factor is super important. One of the things that the waiver has that the managed care does not is, yes, they have a care coordinator. However, they do not have a visit schedule. And yes, I know that there are coordinators out there who do not see their families or their people. I know they exist. I know we've gotten cases. I haven't seen my coordinator in 2 years. And I'm just like, how is that possible? So I know that exists. I want to get rid of that. I want that eliminated. But what if managed care had to have a visit schedule? And, right now, as it is with our program, if you have a client that lives in a group home or supported living, we see them every single month. Every 3 months, it's in the home. If they live in the family home, we see them every 3 months. Every 6 months, it's in the home, unless they're limited support coordination, which, I don't even want to get in the weeds on that. But there is an expectation of a visit, and then you are getting to know your person, their family. That's accountability, that's quality, that's, then we're able to kind of, we also help develop the resources and stuff. I love the idea of the HOPE program, right? That's a big old thing. They had this last year. They have something called the Care Portal. How about we have the HOPE program, load the Care Portal up with, faith-based organizations and other nonprofits and stuff. And then we can utilize the Care Portal for community-based type resources. I mean, we've already got it kind of going, But instead they've got those Hope navigators working on processes that really, are they really helpful? And
enough Hope navigators to make it helpful.
there's just yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to consider there. Oh, and I do want to mention that I do think that the legislators from everything, they really do want to help, but I think we've got to help them. We have to help continue to educate. And I think that with what's going on with the Family Care Council and the involvement of the family, and Jeff Swenson, who's on here, he went up to Tallahassee this week, and he came up on Tuesday.
Hey Jeffrey, what did
afternoon.
you say to me, asshole?
What was that? Oh.
I think that, well, and I can, I can, yeah, I can say that I had 42 people. It's spring break right now in Northeast Florida. I had 42 people attend my family care council meeting that I facilitated on Wednesday. 42 people, 42 families.
Wonderful.
Well,
And
this
that's
is my
something that APD
sorry.
has not really promoted, is the family involvement, but now the legislators want accountability. And one of the things that one of the reps said to me yesterday was, with having Danny Perez as the speaker, who has a brother with profound autism, and that we have a small window to really be able to try to exact some real, significant changes. But the quality, accountability, I think in the managed care thing, if we have a visit schedule, that will help with accountability. And that substitution
is an option like an
is
opt
what?
like an opt-in an option for 2026?
To opt into the managed care pilot?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's part of it, that they're going to open it up to iBudget waiver, recipients to be able to opt into it. You will be.
Well, there is a way to make the managed care work for us. And the biggest issue with managed care that I've experienced personally, and I experience it from the provider end, is that they're so limited with the credentialing. You'll have, they go by the radius, right? As opposed to the actual need in the community. And if they have hit their quota, per se, of how many providers they have, well, each of those providers can maybe take on 5 or 6 kids. And they typically don't have the ability to take on profoundly intense situations. So even on who are coming from, so it gets really tricky in that sense. And that's been my biggest complaint with managed care to begin with, is it's so limited and it limits families. The intention was to create a fair market where you allow for great providers to move up while providers that are, far from great fall out. But that's not how it works, because you're limited with who is credentialed. So you end up being forced into positions with pretty awful providers.
And that's why if we can stay in with these guys and the development of this, then maybe we make it to the way that it needs to be. The managed care is going to have to abide by what is, going into legislation and, rules and all that stuff. So, the involvement that you guys are having and shaping all of that is very significant, because honestly, if we didn't have this involvement, there would be so many things that are going on that, it just would. And then next thing you know, you're like, oh my God, that changed. We're actually being a part of it, and it is working. So helping to make sure that, I haven't been courting managed care and been like, oh my God, I can't wait for it to get here. I've been kind of, not okay with it. And there's been that lack of accountability. And I think, they get a lot of money, and it's in their best interest to delay, to deny, because their achieved savings rebate is going to be much higher, that they get a percentage of what they don't spend. So if you don't spend it, it's, so I want to see some accountability where that's concerned. And
yeah. Melissa, I have a suggestion for another word, if I may interject, and it's transparency. And that's one of the issues that we have at times from APD. But my position is that we have a lot more transparency with what happens with APD and their policy implementation of policy than we get with managed care. And when you talk with managed care companies and try to get information about clients or about their policies and procedures, they throw up a red flag and say, no, sorry, that's proprietary. We don't have to tell you. And we don't disclose that information. So I think that's a key factor and key thing to talk about with your legislators about how to get more transparency equivalent to what we get with APD. And we always want transparency. Florida is a sunshine state after all. So let's keep it in the sunshine.
There was a time where there was more transparency, and I want to say it was like early 2014. I was able to get on the CMS site and see every single charge that came through for my child's Medicaid and what was paid back. There was a lot more transparency, and that has all disappeared.
Yeah. So the other thing about the CDC program for the long-term care program, a key point of distinction is the way that the nursing services are handled. So with the APD waiver program on the CDC, the funding for the adults for private duty nursing becomes part of your CDC budget. For long-term care waiver, that's not going to be the case. So that wouldn't give you the flexibility for your nursing services under a managed care scenario. Just key
And the respite,
yeah.
definition is also another big factor.
Okay, so I really liked what Melissa said, because again, we are informed, educated families, but we're families, and I want to give us a simple way to connect with our legislators, because I know that this is seen a committee and it's got 2 stops in the House, and then we got to go over to the Senate, but this session flies by quickly. So Melissa's suggestion was for us to reach out about that managed care component, having those case managers have the visit. Is it the same, like two visits a year is what you're saying? Like through the iBudget waiver with your support
So
coordinators?
with CDC, it is 2 a year, but everybody that lives in supported living or group homes, they get seen every month.
Every
And
month, okay.
And family home that's not on CDC is every 3 months. So, there needs to be a more accountable visit schedule. Maybe they don't do it like that, but I mean, that's like one of the, I think it is the best part of the job, is actually getting to go out and get to know the folks that you're serving, to get to know them over time. And that's, I think, what something that, if you really want to not be held accountable, and you don't have to see your people, well, I mean, guess what? It's perfect for that. I like the visitation, because it will make that managed care plan pretty kind of accountable. You're having your people, you're going out, you're seeing these guys. And how can you ignore this or, that? So I do think that would help with the accountability in a way that they don't have it.
Their case managers don't have all the responsibility to the way the support coordinator found. And they have caseloads of 18. So they're going to have a lot. So it's going to be a little different.
Yeah,
so
and
nothing has happened on the Senate yet, though. Just so you know, the Senate still has the initial bill of APT sitting there, but I know there's conversations going on.
Yeah, so I think that would be a great point of action with this bill this week, is for all of us to reach out to our representatives. And I have our support coordinator comes here, she plays with Logan's frogs with him, and like I can tell that when I'm talking to her about our needs, that she knows, because she knows my kids. And that's a story that I can share with our legislators, to say, like, if we're going to implement this statewide, it needs to have the same quality of care, and that's a way to do it. And so I love that, because it feels like, what do we do? Let's go. but and I went wild with the breakdown of that PCS bill, which was a big education experience for me too. eh, eh, but keeping it simple and making it effective, speaking with one voice would be to reach out to everybody's local legislators while their, mind is on this bill and it's still in committees about that quality care piece. Anything else, Melissa, that you said? Because I feel like I want to make sure that we have the right message to send out.
No, I mean, that's, we want accountability. That's a big thing. So I think
Transparent.
I can, I'm sorry, I didn't see who had said before about being able to see what the managed care company had spent on your son years ago. I mean,
That was
that would be
me,
some,
Anna.
okay, Anna, that would be some serious transparency.
Oh, it was. And it was really great because it gave me a good perspective on what was happening with the providers, because I think that's part of it that's missed as well. Providers aren't typically talking to parents about some of these factors. So many parents have no idea that money that's not spent, the big companies are getting a chunk of. So I think that is a detail that maybe would be great to have available for families that are reaching out, because if that's pointed out, that changes the perception, right? Yes, managed care saves money, but if they're incentivized to not spend and not take a person first approach, then it defeats the purpose.
Hey, I'd like to make a comment.
Hey, Mary.
Hey, Stephanie. When the group first started, the main course was to rail against the managed care taking over the system. And now I hear everybody kind of warming up to the idea of it going statewide before that 3-year pilot even ended. So, like, what's changed in the group's opinion? I'd like to know as
Well,
far as that
actually,
goes.
our group has had the same mission from the jump. Our group is to connect with our local legislators and share our personal stories. And while many of us in this group have maintained our position that we want fee for service, the legislature has the language in the bill for this pilot to move statewide. So I don't know that it's so much that we're warming up to the idea, but we're trying to impact what's out there right now. And right now there's a pilot and it is set to implement next year. And really, if your personal story, and this is for everyone on the call, is that you are not interested in managed care, that is a conversation point to have with your legislator. I've found personally that being able to kind of come from a place of curiosity with my representative and say, could you help me understand why this benefits Logan and Gavin, or what you know about it, why you're going in this direction. It's helped move that conversation. But the reality is the state of Florida, like many other states, is trying to figure out how to increase certainly, providers and reduce that wait list. And my mom's stake in this is to always make sure that Logan and Gavin have what they need to live a happy, fulfilling life. So our group does not have we don't have a stance on anything but our personal stories. So I have heard that once or twice, and I want to make sure that that's not correct. I know in the beginning when we first started, managed care wasn't on the table. The pilot hadn't started yet. So maybe that's where you're getting that from. But no, we're not warming up to anything. We just want to make sure that we are at the table. The idea here is by having these relationships and connections with our legislators, that they'll now come to us and say, hey, Mary, there's a managed care pilot on the table. What do you think? How can we improve this? And if not, you can weigh in and let them know.
Oh, no, I mentioned that when group first started in Facebook, because I didn't know a damn thing about managed care. And I thought, why don't we have a seat at the table is what I put out there. And I was like, a lot of pushback on even considering that option because I just wanted to see, the more the better. And if they are going to make something, make sure we have our say on it so it's not crappy for the people and then they force everybody into it, was my thinking. So I just trying to see where y'all are at this point. Seems like the group's evolved and that's kind of normal.
Same.
Things evolve as time goes by, but I
Yeah,
mean,
we're at the same spot as you. We want to have a seat at the table. Whatever they're talking about that impacts us, we want to make sure that we're involved in that conversation.
yeah, like personally, I think housing, I heard Melissa say a lot about accountability, but to be quite honest, from my experience with waiver support coordinators so far in our area, even if they have a little mentoring or education, they really aren't familiar with a lot of what's needed. And there's a group through the arc of Jacksonville. They have this like intense life planners. And it's actually a thing where you actually need to know these things. And let me tell you, for a lot of years, I didn't know them, but they're intense and they're complicated and it has to do with managing all these benefits, planning out your son and daughter's life. And these waiver support coordinators or a case manager should be trained in this to be able to help families plan because it costs thousands of dollars per child out of pocket to get this information otherwise. And that's pretty essential. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, my family, we don't have relatives in the area, so there's no big support system. But so for people who have that large support system, they may not be feeling the kind of strain and isolation that comes along with people who are on their last limb. But if you don't start, a lot of people when their kids are young, they really don't have any idea what to expect. They fall into the trap like we all do. There's so much going on with the schools, and it's filling a lot of the gaps until they graduate from school and they fall off that cliff, and then they go through what I have and other parents who are older that I've talked to. There's a real cliff that starts to happen, and if you didn't get this information, you may not have prepared like you should have or could have. And it's a real loss for your kids if you don't have that information. And then housing, I don't see why there can't be an agency, whether it's an agency of persons with disabilities or Florida Housing Finance, to mandate Section 8 housing choice voucher and for all persons in supported living. It's unaffordable. They're all being forced into group homes, which is another type of institutionalization with no privacy, no accountability, no choice, no security. I think it's just horrendous. And why can't there be automatic program that's just, I mean, most of the people on this program are extremely low income. It's even required to have such limited assets. The prices are so astronomical. I'm just putting it out there, the two things I think are pressing issues that, as far as gaps that I would like to see filled for persons.
That
And I'll just,
exactly what you need to write your legislator about. I know that there are conversations this year on housing, and those bills, as far as I understand, have not been heard yet. Nicole, I'm looking at you. The housing stuff, is that been in committees yet?
Yeah, let me double check it. Sorry. Because we were just talking about this today, actually. It's Senate Bill 1004 and House Bill 1131. And it's been moving in the House, but not yet in the Senate. So that's
Yeah.
So,
when
when these bills are in committees, even more so, this is the time for you to reach out to your legislature about those bills. I mean, we gotta know about them so we can help be a part of the conversation to improve them. And Melissa had mentioned at the beginning of the call that Jeff made his way to Tallahassee this week. And Jeff, I'm going to do the thing that I put you on the spot. Was this your first time in Tallahassee?
It was my first time. Luckily, I had Melissa to kind of guide me around, and Doug, her lobbyist friend, was there. Really nice gentleman. But I attended that. We attended the committee with them where first APD got on the hot seat and they got kind of grilled, and then ACA got in there and they got grilled.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah, I signed up. I was going to talk. So I'm sitting there the whole time trying to listen, but trying to get my head ready. And they were peppering them with so many questions that they ran out of time. And so then afterwards, that's when we got to visit with Representative Mello. We also caught Representative Steele for a little bit. And then the next day, I met with my Senator Collins' office and talked to them about it. And the message that I heard from them was that we want to hear from people like you that are telling us, because otherwise, if we don't hear anything, we just assume everything's okay and put it through. And I was actually pretty vocal about not wanting to have a mandatory managed care implemented. Because I said I don't want I don't want City just to become a number. I'm lucky in that I have people like Melissa that are looking after her, because I said she can't talk, and I said I need people like that to advocate for her, and we need quality people like her in the environment. So it was a very eye-opening experience. It was fun to kind of watch that. I guess I would have been more relaxed if I knew I wasn't going to talk. But yeah, I was ready.
I was jumping out of my seat on the couch, like
Yeah.
how that was a tough hearing to hear all those answers, non-answer, all the answers to the questions.
Mello
What
said that the gentleman from ACA, she said you could just see the sweat on his mouth, around his lips. So yeah.
That's incredible. So uh
What
what
was
else
the name
about
of the housing bill again? I didn't get a chance to write it down.
I put it in the chat, Mary. So the House bill is 1131, and I put the link there, and then Senate bill 1004.
Appreciate
so
that.
when we're talking about that communication piece with our legend, that's so thank you, Jeff. Thank you so
Sure.
much for going up there. You know, you're your daughter's voice, and that's one thing that I've heard from the representatives and the senators is we want to hear from you. Like, tell us
Right.
how it is, tell us your truth, because if you don't tell us, then we're listening to the agency folks, and luckily enough of us have been saying, you know, ask these questions and see what answers you get. And that is incredible. That's awesome.
I
So,
also emailed every one of those, that committee member. I emailed them before we went up there.
and yeah, that's so cool. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you did that. And we want to be able, as a group, to continue to, as these committee meetings go up, to have families go up there and you know, if you're a self advocate, to go speak to the legislature, because there is no greater expert than us. And they know that now. Um, and I'm still tickled pink by that. That's so awesome. I'm so glad you were there. Um, we are at 3:43, so we've got about 15 minutes before the Family Care Council is doing their Let's Talk legislative wrap up of the week. And I want to make sure that families are able to get on that call. But if there's anyone on the call that would like to talk about something we haven't touched on, or if you had questions related to what's coming down the pipe, or how to connect with your legislator, now's our time to the family
Stephanie,
chat.
can I mention one thing?
Please.
The federal government's getting ready to decide decisions about Medicaid. I put in the 4 key legislators in the chat that are on the Energy and Commerce Committee. That's where the Medicaid stuff is sitting right now. And I also put in a link to one pager on Medicaid in Florida. If anyone can reach out to them, I'm going to be reaching out to them about protecting Medicaid. Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
this is Deborah. I just wanted to mention I was on a webinar just a couple weeks ago with Christopher Kogel. He's the Chief Medical Officer for Florida Medicaid. And he talked about the fact that it's a very high priority right now. They're setting some for reasons that, and I really loved this, that Medicaid is consistently under the scrutiny of the public. And for that reason, they've got a significant focus on it right now. And the goals relate to, I'm just reading my notes here, quality, and they want to make sure that they're reserving enough funds. And also they want to make sure there's a one-to-one, one patient to one physician, and that there's a relationship that will drive responsible care and patient education. These are the goals. Another thing that probably nobody knows about, because I didn't know either, is they're actively involved in a value-based care initiative that started February 1st, 2025, and goes through February 1st of 2031, a value-based care initiative. So that's really the short of it is it's equality, trying to measure quality and costs and making sure that they are spending Medicare dollars wisely in getting the highest quality of care. So that just started this initiative. And so just kind of be aware of it. We should hopefully be seeing more information about that. And I would anticipate that it would affect Medicaid for sure in some way, and the managed care program. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. Did you put anything in the chat on that, or could you?
no, there's not like a link or anything that I can share. It's just information. I can just let you know what it is, the value-based care project and the goals, if you'd like me to do that. But I thought it was interesting that, but for that opportunity to be on that webinar, I wouldn't have known about it. So I don't think many people do.
I didn't know about it. So that's, yeah.
But I think it's positive, I think that's very positive, and it's something we want to pay attention to.
And any of these webinars or any sort of conferences people go to, anything like that would be really helpful for our families, because we all have wild schedules and we can go to this and not that, and some of the things are recorded, some of them aren't. So I want to encourage our families, if you're not on our Facebook page right now, currently, that is our main form of communication in between these meetings. Please join us. I did purchase a domain. So at some point, probably after session, because then I got to figure out, unless somebody has web design skills, we are accepting all volunteers on all things. But after session, we'll get a website going so that we can have a better way to communicate. We try to keep families in the know. And Nicole, do you have the link to the Facebook group?
Yeah, it's in the chat. It's at the beginning of the chat, along with the link for the YouTube.
Perfect. I did have one other thing I forgot. Joe McCann from Family Cafe and the From organization is coming down to my woods, which is in the Gulf Coast in Fort Myers, to do a workshop for advocacy as a lifelong pursuit, and how to help families, engage at really any level of systems meaningfully, just like we do here in this group. He's going to do a couple hours on what we do each week. And if you're interested in having Joe come into your area and do a workshop like this, I know that he would be all about it. But I'm going to try to do what I can to get our local university to live stream that through their platform. That's next Friday. So next Friday, our meeting will be interesting. I have to ask Nicole offline, but now online, is maybe we can get some families to help bridge that hour. And we will keep you informed. Melissa's really helping with the email list, and we've got 10 more minutes. So I know that there's been a lot of yakety yak. If you have something you wanna, there we go. Sue, go ahead.
Hello. So I'm trying to get into the swing of things, and I'm simply overwhelmed with all the information. I don't think it's made easy to understand. I'm a very visual person. I come from corporate America, and I love executive summaries, and I can't seem to find, so in my pursuit of trying to understand managed care, I would have liked to have seen, hey, we have a great idea. If we can do this managed care thing, we can take the 12,000 people off the wait list and give them at least a minimum level of services through APD, so they're not just sitting out there wondering if they're ever going to get off the wait list. Boom. Value story right there. There's the proposition. Somebody says, what does that take? They say, well, we're going to interview a few companies, come up with one that gives us the best proposal, and then we'll share it with everyone and see if you're good, and we'll roll it out in a limited fashion, and then we'll evaluate to see if it's a good thing, and if it's a good thing, then we'll do more of it. Okay. So to me, that's kind of like real simple, not anything that I'm experiencing now. The ACA report that I mentioned to you and Melissa, presented to legislature December 2024, said they were actually going to soon be establishing the criteria to evaluate the pilot program. I'm like, who starts a program without goals that are evaluated after you run the program for some time? The program didn't actually get into effect until October, and they don't even know what they're measuring to tell whether it's a good thing or not. So how in the world can you actually talk about doing more of something that you don't even know what you're doing right now? So, I mean, in my very simplistic fourth grade language viewpoint, like, we're all familiar when we shop and we compare like the different TVs at Best Buy, we get these nice columns, right? So column 1 is iBudget waiver, column 2 is CDC plus, column 3 is managed care, right? Then you have all your attributes and your traits, right? So like Melissa mentioned earlier, coordinator visits, visit frequency. So for iBudget waiver, you've got monthly. For CDC plus, it's whatever. For managed care, if there's a big question mark, that's something we can say to the legislature. Isn't the whole idea here, or at least one of the primary ideas, is to lower the cost to get service more people at the same level of care? Right? Obviously, we have a care thing. That's a different initiative to raise care overall. But so anyway, I think you got my point. And I would just love to see something super simple that gives a comparison, points out the gaps, points out what the program is actually meant to do before you start doing stuff. I can't even fathom how one could do stuff without actually knowing what they're trying to accomplish. But don't get me started on that.
I dig it, Sue. Your external voice was my internal voice when I like it is something that I think that's like a really easy, fabulous conversation to have with your legislature. Like, could you please help me understand in a simple way who does what? And I think honestly, they don't have that information. A lot of what I created with the legislator university was to help them and us break things down simply. And I really like your visual idea. I think you and I could do some work with that. But there are some question marks there, like we don't know. But that's very honest, and probably what a lot of families are thinking is, how do we have what is a pilot? I thought a pilot was a test, and feels like we had a bad batch of testing the first round, and we're going to try it again and then just go with that. And that's really my main concern is we have all worked really, really hard to get our kids to where they're at, and they're not test subjects. Like, I want to make sure that they have quality care. I'm already struggling with that right now. So here, Sue, good point.
Would
I
we do
want-
that with our water? You know, would you do that with our drinking water? I don't think so. I don't think they'd pass a bill to roll out a new In fact, in my city, they're actually doing a pilot with a different contractor to decontaminate the water or whatever they do to make it drinkable. But yeah, so, and I'd be happy to work with you or anybody on creating some more visuals. And I love that first infographic that was, I think Nicole did.
Yeah.
Earlier. That was awesome.
wanted to
I
mention
feel you,
something.
Sue, because a lot of our families, they have the same kind of, like this is a lot of information to filter. And we already have very limited space to begin with. At least I do. Like you're probably going to hear my kids screaming in the background in just a minute. So I think everyone on this call understands and appreciates that. I asked a friend of mine once, just to give you some perspective, can you give me the Medicaid for dummies? Like, just so I can understand, because this is, I grew up in the, TRICARE military healthcare system, and that's its own nightmare. But the slides they gave me for that were like almost 200 pages. And that was supposed to be the for dummies. So just to give you like an idea. So this is, again, so like me and Stephanie maybe, but we have so many of our families are like, just why is it not understood much more simply? So yes, I agree.
Excellent. Another project,
How
but
about advocating that they do some of this stuff?
yeah, and I think that it could
That
start
the
with
legislature put it on a committee or somewhere or what, however, I don't know where, but why isn't the government telling us how their system works? Why are we having to tell them? The legislators.
Well, in APD, I don't know if you guys can hear me,
yes.
but we're focused on individuals that are so sensitive and so delicate and differentiated in every other kind of way. And yet there's not a lot of people that can have those relationships or quality of care with them. So when they attend schools or this managed care, where they're not getting what they need, then that's a disservice and that's going to act out in our society. These kids are not going to get what they need to reach their full potential. And who they're working with should be teachers. They should be paid as teachers that help teach every kid in society. It just frustrates me because there's no options for my kid to go to school or a day program because there's nobody competent enough, and she's high functioning, but they're not competent enough to of an organization to know how to handle
And the other one?
different
But-
kids, different disabled adults.
You're Missy?
Yeah, I'm Missy.
Missy, I'm so glad you're on the call. I think that is a really worthwhile conversation to have with your local legislature. If you haven't done that or you need help finding that, how old's your kid?
She turned 30 this year.
Oh, she's 30.
She's 30. Yeah.
You sound really young.
No, I'm gonna be turning 50.
Oh, girl. Well,
Yeah.
you're a perfect voice for that. Is we want that quality care for our kids, and it has to start in the schools, and it has to continue, and it's a ripple effect because it's not just them, it's the providers that care for them who are
Right.
pulling the weight, and there's a system that doesn't understand, and legislatures that don't understand, and families that are overwhelmed, siblings who are disregarded, and grandparents, and it just goes on and on.
Right.
And when we talk
Yeah.
about that affecting, the bottom line, the dollar, right? We're doing this the backwards way. So I want to be mindful of the time because we have a 4:00 meeting with Family Care Council, but we will be back here on Fridays at 3. Please feel free to reach out in our Facebook group throughout the week. That's our place to connect for the moment. And thank you, everybody. We will see you next week.
Hey, are you planning on having a booth at Family Cafe this year or not?
Talk to me offline. We're going to go.
Right, bye.